Thank you so much for investing your time with us on a Saturday morning. Great morning to all of you. My name is Camelia Law. I'm the moderator for today's Fireside session. Just a brief background of myself. I'm the founder of Kabel, a Tinder for jobs. I founded this to help leaders like you to connect with your future hires through purpose, vision, and mission. In other words, matching like-minded people together, which leads to our chat today on the topic of from parenting to leadership. This topic is rarely being spoken about in our office with our colleagues, but there are many similarities of what we can learn from this. So today, I'm looking forward to hear from our two amazing speakers who have been going through this journey. Hope that you will gain some tips from them today. Our goal at Kabel is to build awareness of the importance of leadership in building a high-performance business through their best assets, people. If people is truly the most important asset in our organization, then we should be obsessed about finding ways of how we can better ourselves to be leader to our people. Don't you agree? So at the beginning of this week, I did a short poll on my LinkedIn to help us navigate our session today. Here's the result on, do you think parenting style can be adopted into leadership style? Here's some answers. 75% of them says yes. 14% of them said no, and I wonder why. And 11% said not too sure. So maybe you're here to find out, which is great. So if you all have polled in a yes with us, do share some of our comments on the chat box as we discuss about some parenting practices and how we can better connect the dots to leading teams at our workplace. Whether you are a working parent or not, I hope that by the end of the session, you will be able to walk away with something, a new idea, a fresh perspective, a new strategy that you can apply to be more successful in your role. Now, here are some simple rules, and format to give you an idea what to expect. We'll take a few moments to introduce our amazing guest today. I'll kick off the conversation asking questions that draw out some high-level practices we should be thinking about to help us navigate. And if you have any questions, just leave a comment in the Q&A session. During the second half of our time today, we'll open to the floor and answer some questions. So keep it coming through the session. Sounds good? Okay, great. Let's get started with the guest speaker. Now here we have this beautiful lady here, Zalina. Zalina, say hi.
Morning.
Morning. Is the Chief Operating Officer of Southeast Asia Hibiscus, a subsidiary of Hibiscus Petroleum. Zalina spent 2 decades in the private and public sector, mostly in the oil and gas industry. In ExxonMobil Malaysia, Talisman Energy, and as the Vice President in MPRC. She later served as the Chief Business Development Officer in the Asia School of Business, a collaboration between BNM, Bank Negara Malaysia, and MIT Sloan. Zalina gives her time back in the energy and women leadership advocacy space and serves as a board member at the Koperasi Tenaga Petroleum. As a recognition to these contributions, she received 2020 Malaysia Leaders Award by the World Women Leadership Congress. I find Zalina an amazing learner first, then leader. She's a believer in chasing outcomes and making impact. In her earlier days, she was known for her skills in finding oil for large oil and gas companies and climbing tanks while she was pregnant. That's so amazing.
You know a lot of stuff about me.
I've been spying. So now she is a mom to a teenager and a 20-year-old young man, which I'll leave it to you later to introduce them. And Shazmi here, our handsome, young-looking gentleman, is currently the country HR director of Xiao Malaysia. Hi, Shazmi. Good morning to you.
Good morning, everyone. Pleasure to be here.
Shazmi is now responsible for 4,500 employees across upstream, downstream, and Shell business operations. He has 2 decades of experience as a HR leader across Asia Pacific. Prior to joining Shell, Shazmi was the cluster leader for Southeast Asia for Pfizer, based in Singapore. Now, Shazmi has been credited as the global 100 most influential HR person, and is also a recipient in Excellence in HR Leadership Award by the Golden Globe Tiger Awards. A true commercial HR that strongly embodies people above systems philosophy. He is a father to a pair of twins and a baby girl. Shazmi is a very hands-on dad and had made the decision to return to Malaysia to work at Shell Malaysia to be closer to his children. To top that up, Shazmi is also especially hands-on as he's also married to a frontliner for our nation. He's truly an amazing dad and a supportive husband. So let's welcome our amazing guest speaker today. Right. Okay, great. So Zalina and Shazmi, you are both working parents. Share with us a little bit about, your kids, like how old are they, give us some background and how parenting style is assimilated into your leadership style. Zalina, would you like to go first?
Sure. Thanks, Camilla, and good morning, everyone. I'm very excited to actually share this stories and tips and at the same time learn from all of you, and especially from Camilla and Shazmi as well, because I think as Camilla mentioned, I am so crazy about learning, and I'm also crazy about efficiency. So one thing that I've kind of learned from, for the last 20 odd years in being a working mother and also being a leader in a workplace, right? It's all about connecting to each individuals, and there is no one set answer, because sometimes we tend to have this big agenda, big idea of how we should lead, and then kind of have a broad brush for everyone, and that doesn't work, right? So I have 3 kids, as Camilla mentioned just now in my intro, 20-year-old, 15 and 13. So basically they're all teenagers and a young adult. Just to share, how we did the annual reflection. So you can see they're all big lah. I'm probably the second to my daughter, the smallest one now. So basically, I find that, if we don't set the tone and the intention, I find myself going everywhere, right? So for the first 5 years, I wish as an engineer, I was like, I wish parenting comes with a manual, but it doesn't, right? So and then from then on, I realized, look, I have to learn, and with my husband, to build this so-called family enterprise together. And we have to make a conscious effort and set the intention and be intentional about building this. And my husband and I, we started off both, he's still in ExxonMobil. So there's a lot of DNA there in terms of setting the system, setting the processes that we felt that is useful for us to also embed and integrate as part of our family, right? So from that on, we kind of tried to do simple things first. We did, you see here, this is probably the 100th iteration already, right? I mean, what you saw here is already a perfected system, not perfected, but at least it's already a developed system. But the first 5 years was crazy. We didn't know what to do. We didn't know, seriously, Shazmi, I can totally empathize with you having small kids below 10, right? And it was out of that desperation. Okay, so let me just admit, it was out of desperation that we decided, okay, let's set up something that we felt that we can not control, but at least shape as a family, right? And then we started out with having a family value. So I remembered having a conversation with a 2-3-year-old talking about values. At that time, it was not so much, they don't understand what value means, right? But for us, we said that, okay, if you don't set these values for them, then the external world will shape their values. And we don't want that to happen when they are 12 and we realize, oh, that's not the values that we want them to have. So we actually had smaller sessions with the 2-3-year-old over 20 minutes to kind of say, okay, we want all of us to be, number one, honest. So what does that mean to be honest? That means if you make a mistake, we are okay that you tell us, right? And that continues. So because that sets I would say the foundation of open communication. Or for example, we said, we have to balance the now and the future. That means that this is about delayed gratification. So we kind of said, okay, I will, and we kind of know at that point already about this experiment, right? The marshmallow experiment and stuff. And we said, okay, I will spend and invest time to say, do certain things that I don't like to do now for the future of potential return of investment. I mean, they don't understand at that point, but we kind of go down to a 2-year-old language and say, okay, if you do this, then you will get this. So we found that rather than telling them what to do, we ended up debating about, okay, and the funny thing that I really want to share this, it keeps me honest, it keeps my husband honest. Because sometimes I said, okay, I will, if we value honesty, if they tell us something, I have to hold my anger and say, thank you for your feedback and thank you for this, because you're being honest, right? And sometimes when you do that, your parents are mirror, like children are mirror to us, right? And sometimes I see myself, and then they would then question, oh yeah, Mama, you talk about responsibility, you talk about finance. So we have about 5 or 7 values when they were small, and as we go, we kind of filter it down to 3 or 5, right? One of them is actually financial literacy. And I said about saving, right? And then there were times when I went on shopping spree, and then they're like, Mama, you remember talk about the financial thing, right? You talk about saving. Why did you buy so many bags? And then you look at yourself like, oh yeah.
Okay.
It's very important to set the system and the values early.
Okay.
And it's kind of giving the freedom within freedom. This is a term that I borrow from my former colleague in Asian School Business, who teaches that, which I only learned last year, right? But at the end of the day, it's all about how do you set, how do you give freedom and a sandbox, so to speak, to play, but be very clear on what we expect them to behave.
Thanks, Zalina. So hold that thought, all right, while we go to Shazmi. Shazmi, how about yourself? Okay, Zalina is like, she's gone through it. She has got bigger children and whatnot. Where are you right now? What stage are you right now? Maybe you can share with us a little bit about your background and the kids.
Yeah, so I am at the other end of the spectrum, right? So Zalina's kids are teenagers and a young adult. So I have 3 children. So I've got a pair of twins, a boy and a girl, and they turned 7 this year. So they are in standard 1, in the middle of completely doing online school. Yeah. And I also have a 2-year-old toddler. So, I mean, initially when you think that, parenting and leadership are completely 2 different things. But I think especially for us, when you have twins, I think it's very easy to compare that things are actually very unique and very different, because the number one common thing people will ask you when you have twins, oh, so they must be similar. Do they cry at the same time? That's a very typical thing, right? If one person's sick, the other one gets sick because of love or bond. When one person is sick, the other person gets sick because they play together. Nothing to do with this love bond, right? But more importantly is our twins are completely different. Every one of them is their own individual. And I think one thing that is very unique is because we also have a boy and a girl. So in the beginning, when we first gave them crayons, so I kind of did a bit of a test. I was just very curious to see how children will react. So they were at the 2 ends of the hall, right? And we put a pink crayon and a blue crayon just to see what happens. Automatically, the boy went for the blue crayon, the girl went for the pink crayon, without anyone telling them that pink is meant for girls and blue is for boys, right? So we put a train and we put a doll as a toy. He went for the train, she went for the doll. So just looking at that, I think we cannot underestimate that some things are naturally in you as you come in. And when I apply that to leadership, sometimes we try so hard to change our staff. Sometimes we try so hard to make an introvert into an extrovert. That's never going to happen, right? I think it's about appreciating that there is diversity, appreciating everyone's individuality, and trying to work on what works best for them. Because, we can talk about development, etc., but certain things are just inherently their own personality. Just to give you another example, when they were about, I think, 2 or 3 years old, now I can't remember. So my daughter is an extrovert. She likes friends, etc., blah, 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 blah. He wants to be quiet. So she told me that for her birthday party, she wanted to call all her friends. She never had friends at 3 years old because they didn't go to nursery, right? But she wanted to call all her cousins, blah, 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 blah. And my son told me, his best birthday will be just him and the presents and us. without anyone else coming for the birthday. So, certain things you can't change because it is, naturally they are just like that, right? And I mean, there's so many things which I will share throughout. But for me right now, I think the difficult part, and I empathize with anyone who's managing children doing online school. I think when they are, I don't know, maybe they're 11, 12 years old or 14, 15, they kind of can manage online school by themselves. And at 7 is really tough, right? And it's also tough on the teachers. I empathize with the teachers because suddenly they have to do everything virtually. So every now and then while I'm in the middle of a call, I will get my son or daughter, sometimes teary-eyed, saying, I don't know what the teacher is saying. She said there's a link in the chat box. I cannot find the link. All those challenges, right? But you just have to manage it. And I was telling both of you yesterday, right? We have already done sort of a policy to say that do not apologize when your children appear on the camera, because it's not that you brought your kids to work, but your work has come to where your kids are. So you have to be, you have to be very understanding. I had an interview 3 days ago where the person that was interviewing me, this is an interview for an article, by the way. The person that was interviewing me had her daughter on her lap, and I had my baby on my lap. And they had kind of sort of their own conversation as well as we were doing the conversation. But,
beautiful.
Yeah, but that is how it is, right? I think we cannot run away from that. And if you are a leader or you're going to be a future leader in your organization and you cannot understand that as people work from home, then you need to change that mindset. I'll just pause there and pass back over to you.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing, Shazmi. I think that it would be a beautiful picture with, did you manage to take a shot of you and the interviewer with your 2 kids?
I should have.
Yeah. Okay, so question to Zalina. You shared earlier that, it's important to have basic guiding values and purpose in leading. And you have described earlier about, how you actually instill that within your, your family, your kids, right? So how is it actually being done in the corporate setting? Is it similar or not?
That's a good question, Camelia. So I think where I am right now, I'm in a new role, so still very fresh, I would say, and navigating that for sure. And I can say that it's very important to also find ways where the values match and also be very, very clear on where the values don't match, right? And at the end of the day, it's okay to have slightly different values between your company and your own, because you know what, you can never find totally 100% overlap. But there are certain things where you must have, and there are certain things that, okay, you are willing to accept and embrace the diversity. That's what diversity is all about, right? So I think that same goes with individual team members. I think by nature, I'm always a curious person. And I think that the maternal instinct rubs off to me to some extent, that I'm always curious about, okay, how do I bring this person up to their potential? And I think I like what Shazmi said. I think I've come to the point where I've realized there's no point of forcing this person to be what you want them to be. Rather, okay, let's find out what their values are, what their strengths are, and we work together to achieve certain outcome, right? And you don't have to be exactly the same mold. And that's where diversity comes in. And that's where the ideas and all the strength comes in together. So I mentioned to both of you yesterday that I'm an artist by nature. So artist means that you kind of like just wonder and have all this, create things, right? The different components and make a nice piece of art. So it doesn't have to be like, okay, everything has to be cookie cutter. And I think that's one of the things probably I'm a little bit an anomaly, maybe, because, and I think that's where I am testing this out right now in my new role, because, I think oil and gas, as oil and gas is probably a little bit more uniform in the past. But I think with the energy transition, we need to take that lens off and really embrace that diversity. Yeah.
Thank you, Zalina. So for those who are interested to actually see the art pieces in, you mentioned Zalina, art pieces in words, right?
Oh
Yesterday
no,
we've discussed that.
yes.
I
Kindly
have to see
visit.
this as well.
Free promo lah already.
Tak ada, I'm not going to share screen. I'm not so canggih, you know, the auntie here not so canggih, but please do check out www.zalina-canvas.com. She blogs about many amazing stuff. It's almost like a journal, like a deep secret journal. Just follow her and you will know what I mean. Thank you, Zalina. Okay, so Shazmi, back to you. Okay, you are relatively a new parent as compared to Zalina, right? So probably you have a fresh memory in this. Tell us, did parenting change your perspective of leadership? Do you think that you were a different sort of leader when you were, you know, single and available, macho, tall, dark, handsome kind of thing? And now?
No, I think the thing with having kids is you reflect a lot more as a parent and as a leader, right? It's not a magic button that suddenly changes you overnight. But if you take the time to reflect, you will realize that, oh, it changes your perspective of things. And I think that's where if you apply it to leadership, I'm guessing you become a good leader, right? So my twins are super competitive when they were younger. Like now they fight, right? So but when they were younger, they were super competitive. Once I took them to one of my rugby matches, and there's a podium 1, 2, and 3, right? And both refused to budge from position number 1. So they both want to be number 1 together, right? Because they are just competitive. But then you realize, right? But there are times when suddenly they will just collaborate and not compete. So, you know, when they were crawling children, right? You know, we put that safety plug to make sure they don't put their fingers in the socket, right? So no matter how they try, they couldn't remove it. And I don't know why kids are so attracted to that. But they realize if one pull from the right and the other one pull from the left together, it comes off. So, you know, you can get like, you know, highly competitive people, but if you give them a common goal to work on, they will achieve their goal and very happily, easily, they just remove and start putting their fingers in. So even if you have very competitive individuals in the company, but if you give them a common goal, you know, for them to work on, I think they can achieve together. So, you know, there's this notion that in one jungle there can only be one lion. You cannot have 2 superstars in your team. It doesn't work. You can have multiple superstars as long as they're all going in the same direction. Yeah, so I think that's the one thing that I learned, right? I think the other thing is, I think every young parent would have young children parents. I'm not young. Young children parent would have gone through this. You would find drawings on your wall all the time, right? Because children just. So one day we got so irritated. We asked them, "Why are you drawing on the wall?" And the answer surprised us, because there are no places for us to draw. So we draw on the wall. It's white.
Makes sense.
So then we say, okay, makes sense, right? But luckily we asked them. Yeah, if we didn't, and you know, we just typically just scold them, we'll never get the answer. So then we say, okay, we'll give you papers to draw, and we will put those papers on the wall. So your walls will still be colorful, you'll still be attractive, but you don't draw on the wall, you draw on the pieces of paper. And I don't have a photo right now to show, but now their wall is full of their Picasso drawing, which doesn't look like Picasso at all, but they are happy, right? Because now they draw and they decorate, they draw and they decorate. And again, when you apply it to corporate sector or leadership, every staff just need a place and avenue to express themselves in a different way. Sometimes when we feel someone is overly quiet in the meeting or someone is not contributing, just ask them, what works for you? The answer might be quite surprising, right? And you know, the other thing, and just the last one for an example is, as a child, you change your ambition every few weeks. Doctor lah, lawyer lah, no, race car driver, etc. And the same with my kids, right? Teacher, race car driver, etc., etc. And you know, I told my wife, right? It's amazing how, as a child, you are so agile in your thinking that you can change what you want to do. But why is it when we're an adult, our years of working experience hampers that agility? I've got 15 years in HR, so I have to do HR and nothing else. But as a child, you are not stuck with that. So how do we find that, you know, to tell people that your experience should empower you to do different things and not be the, you know, in a way, the disabler to stop you from doing a variety of things. And those are the kind of very simple things that we picked up. And it's I've learned so much from my children, just observing more than anything else.
Okay. So there's much talks about, allowing your people to try and fail. And so this is a question to both of you, right? So, and try and fail and learn from failure. So as the leaders, do you practice prevention versus cure? Meaning, do you allow them to make the mistake and then help them afterwards? Or should you preemptively help them to avoid the mistake as you move along? What are your thoughts? Zalina, you want to go first?
Sure. I was actually trying to reflect how best do I do this, because I think I'm also learning as we speak. And what I've learned, right? And this is the same between parenting style and also leadership style, where I'm not naive to say, okay, you can fail in everything, because it's not in a corporate setting. If you fail in safety, you're dead, right? So you can't really do that. But what I have learned a lot is actually, how do I give a safe space for them to fail? So you fail in the small things first, so that you build the confidence, right? And then help them build for the bigger things. So that goes back to the story that Shazmi shared. Actually, Shazmi, we had the same issue with the drawing things, but we preempted it. Actually, we knew that's going to happen because I have seen other children do that. So my husband and I was like, okay, we should prevent this at any cost. So in the case of safety, you should prevent it at any cost. So what do we do? And we kind of already had that idea early on. So we observe first, right? And then when the kids, my eldest at the time, he loves to draw. So we already knew that from day one, already said, okay, if you want to draw, here are your books. We don't even let him even explore the wall. So that kind of testing in the safe space, right? And then we can also say, okay, here is, so for example, in the case of work, okay, here's a certain project. If the project is super, super critical, we're not going to say, okay, here is a blank check. You're just going to get, it's not practical. Let's just face it. But here are certain milestones or certain things that we would like to get the ideas together. In normal project, for a big oil and gas project, there's a lot of gates and milestone reviews, right? Okay, so let's take a look at this scope. How would you like to explore these things, right? And give them the space to explore. And there is this interesting thing about the concept of disciplined creativity. If you heard about IDEO, maybe I encourage everyone to also take a look at the video of IDEO. Actually, there is that, it's a timed and creativity session. So that means that we say, okay, I'm going to give you from this time to this time to be creative. You can explore as much as possible, but at a certain time, you have to come back to me.
How do we spell IDEO, Zalina?
The IDEO, I'll put a IDEO.
IDEO, okay,
Yeah,
cool.
it's in the Silicon Valley, how they, from Stanford Design School. So I'll share that later. So I kind of use that, and I find that is something that fits me personally, because I don't like to be a micromanager. I don't like to be the dictator, but at the same time, I'm quite driven in terms of the objective, because that's a reality. And also it's my job as a mother and also as a leader to keep people comfortable, right? So that's I think one of the major style that I've adopted so far. I'm quite comfortable with it, but I'm open to also learning other styles, and we'll see how that goes.
Amazing. A leader never stops learning. That's what they say. Okay, Shazmi, back to you then. What's your approach then in terms of practice prevention versus cure?
It's kind of tough, right? So what I have done, so we are a bit of a different, my wife and I. So my wife is stop at all costs, doctor, right? So don't want to create any injury, etc.
Perfect.
So I keep telling my wife, let them fall down a bit, then they will learn. But of course, not fall down to the extent that it's like very bad injuries. So my kids, much the dismay of my wife and my parents and my in-laws, they jump on the chair all the time because for them that's their trampoline, right? And I keep telling my wife, if they fall down once, they're not going to be badly hurt, right? But they will learn their lesson. especially right now with my toddler, because the bigger ones, when they do a bit more of this adventurous stuff, they are quite agile, they can climb things and all, they're fine, they're 7. But the 2-year-old one is the mini me who wants to copy everything. For her, sometimes we are a bit more careful. But one thing that I should have said in the beginning, what worked for Zalina's family, what worked for my family, might not work for everybody's family. So you have to take everything with a pinch of salt, right? And I think that's really important, because there is no cookie cutter model that a best practice. When we first became parents, right? So we also bodoh don't know how to do. So we bought a parenting book, but most parenting books are written by Western writers with different values, different way of, and we tried to apply. We're like, oh, it doesn't work. Yeah, so because it might work for them, it might work for certain people, but I think it's very important to realize that not only your children are unique individuals, your parenting styles also have to be unique. Like, you cannot just copy and paste across everyone.
True. So, oh yeah, Shazmi, congrats on winning this award, right? Recently, Xiao being the most attractive company to work for in Malaysia.
Yes.
Well done to you and your team.
Thank
you. We have this philosophy in Kabel saying that, we humanize recruitment, which means we consider every job applicant as human and not a piece of resume. System is only an enabler. So tell us more about your philosophy. I'd like to find out more. When you say people above systems, what does it mean?
Yeah, I think this is a common problem with HR, right? Across a number of organizations, we try to develop the most canggih system, but the system becomes the decision maker of whether someone gets to go do something or not. Everything is, the policy won't allow, or the policy doesn't allow, or the system there is a limitation to the system and we can't do it. So, and that, to be honest, irritates me a lot, right? So because we keep asking, what is the system for? To help the staff. So if it's not helping, what is the whole reason of you having the system? I think the way we want to try to do HR is really different. The system should help, and should not be the limiter of everything, right? The limit of whether an employee can do something or not. The other thing is, as we all move towards a digital platform, there are so many times today where you can get a job without speaking to a human being now. Online video interview, AI, determining whether you're shortlisted or not. Then you lose that human touch, which, as I still believe, the human touch is really crucial. Yeah. So today, the Shell system is you submit in your resume. There is some assessment that you do, which is again everything online. And this is way before pre-pandemic, right? So it's always been like that. And then you do an online, what we call ODVI, online demand video interview, where a question pops, it records, you give your answer, and there's a timer at the corner that tell you have 30 seconds to answer, which makes people even more stressed. And then at the end of it, then you're shortlisted for the final interview. And the final interview also is done virtually, but at least it's with a human being. And we've realized that human being interview is usually the most important bit, right? Because then you ask questions about, and I'm giving an unnecessary tip here by, if I ask you, tell me about a failure, and you tell me I've not failed in life, and maybe that is the truth, but I'll be very worried to hire you into the company or any organization. If you tell me 25 years old, you've never failed, maybe you've not taken enough risks in life that you've not failed, or you're just one lucky person that never failed. Because more importantly is how resilient you are when you face a failure, because you will face failures in life. And when we bring back to parenting, I always tell my children, it's okay to fail. It's okay if we don't know an answer and don't get upset, but you need to work for that answer. Yeah, and you cannot keep asking the same questions over and over again. Like, you got to learn, right? But there is that fine balance, because in academia, sometimes when you fail, there's the end of it, unfortunately. So where do you get that place where, okay, it's okay to fail here, but it's okay not, but this one, like what Zalina said, we have to be practical. We don't live in a utopian world. Oh, you can just fail it everywhere and learn your lessons. Some are a bit more the holy grail, that things that you cannot fail, right? I think the top of it is you cannot lose your values above everything else. I think you cannot lose your values. If you lose your values, then it's a bit susah to get back.
Thanks for sharing, Shazmi. Zalina, what are then your criteria when you select a person or a teammate into your team?
Good question. I think it's pretty much common now with a lot of leaders. Shazmi talked about resilience, right? I look at the self-agency. That means that this person is confident enough to solve their problem. They are proactive enough to resolve and work together. Hunger, definitely, right? Because this is one of my former bosses, in Exxon, I think. One of actually the only female boss I've had. You kind of can guess already by now. But she kind of told me, she said, Zalina, it's not difficult to be great because everyone else is mediocre. That's what she said. What does that mean? It's not in a derogatory manner, but rather than, you always want to push yourself to a little bit more, right, than what you can. So I've always looked for people who are willing to go that distant, right? And I think not be afraid to take that risk. I mean, if you ask me, every day when I just personally what I learn about parenting and that I can also apply to being a leader is actually the ability to have compassion to yourself, even as a leader or as a mother, because we screw up all the time. And so we are not like perfect all the time, right? I mean, you're just never perfect, but period. So by recognizing that, I also learned that while I seek these qualities out to people, I also have to be compassionate to myself enough to say, okay, I screwed up this time, I didn't do this well, but okay, move on, kind of like, okay, time out. I don't do this well today, but tomorrow I'll do better. All right. So I think it's a continuous improvement now, how to because otherwise you kind of be stuck in this rut of, okay, even parenting. I know when the age of 2 to 6 to me was one of the very critical, very stressful time because you don't know really, you are shaping this little person. So you kind of testing out and you're like, okay, how does this work? How does that work? And the same thing with being a leader with the team members, right? You're kind of shaping out as you go along. But at a certain point, if you not just keep hitting yourself as a leader and not be willing to learn and from that mistake and move on, you will never learn, right? And then you kind of lost the joy of parenting, the joy of being a leader. And actually now looking back, I'm just like, wow, thank God I'm not that stressful mom who said, why these kids don't do the homework. Because actually maybe I share a little bit of this secret. I am not a tiger mom. In fact, I'm the complete opposite of a tiger mom. My eldest actually this morning, I kind of asked him so what are the things that can you just give me some feedback? And he said, all my friends think that I act like as if I have a tiger mom, but I don't. so I think that's something that, to kind of summarize what you asked, Camilla, the criteria that I look for people, same time, hold myself accountable, and also the criteria that I want to set myself as a leader and parent. So that complement, it's not just one, it's a whole system.
Okay, thanks for sharing that too. And so to both of you, I mean, nowadays with knowledge readily available out there, right? Mr. Google is our best friend and whatnot, correct? So being in a leader organization, how is it that, we could live in this ecosystem not being threatened, if I could use that, by our junior staff, and how would you position yourself in that ecosystem and still lead everybody towards the same goal, the same vision? Shazmi, do you want to go first?
Yeah, so I think the articulation of the vision and what the vision means to each and every one of them, I think is important. I think that's one. So everyone can relate to the vision. Two is to have the humility, and I say that all the time, I'm not the smartest man in the room. And I think that's really important. And to be honest, I am not the smartest man in the room, right? I think if you realize that, and then you open up yourself to the thinking that if I hire smarter people, my job gets easier, right? And you want to hire smart people. You want to be, I don't know, I've always feel like I need to surround myself with people who are smarter than me so I can learn, right? So, and when, when I hire a staff, I'm not looking for someone uh, who I will feel who I will feel like there's nothing I can learn from them. I want to learn from these people, so I don't feel threatened. I feel excited that then whatever project that we do will probably be the best. And the fact that now, there is Google, you can't bullshit your way through, which is good. Because you don't want to, right? You want to make sure that you do what is correct, what is the best. And so whenever now we try to launch a project, etc., we get a lot of feedback from team members that, this organization has done it and it's failed. Or, this is already out, or this is not correct. And I think that's brilliant. I made a mistake, and I say this mistake, with a big M, of calling this external trainer one day to come and give a talk to my team. And as this trainer was speaking, I'm getting text from my staff, this guy is lying.
Oh, gosh.
Because as he is speaking, he said, I've always believed in my principle, blah, 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 blah. My staff is texting me, no, Albert Einstein said this. That's not his principle. And you see, right? So, and I realized, oh man, my criteria of selecting people who come to speak to this team has to be really different now, because these guys, one, will fact check everything. And second, they are smart enough to know what's going on in the world, that you cannot just lie through your way. And I think that's, and it also keep yourself on your toes, right? Because then you cannot be doing the same as well. But it's good. For me, that's a really good thing if your team members are smarter than you. And the only way you can move up in a corporate life is when you already found a ready-made successor. That's the easiest way for you to move, to get a different job, is when there is someone ready to take over your job. So a bit of a different school of thought. I'm not threatened. I'm happy when they're smarter than me.
It's like how you learn from your twins and your young baby, right?
I mean, if I can learn from my twins who are 5, 6 years old, there's so much more opportunity for me to learn from them.
Right. Okay, before we actually open to the audience for the questions and whatnot, how about Zalina? I mean, you are in a space where skills and experience is very much important, right? It's not as easy as like Googling, up an answer and then you know how to go and find the oil and all that, right? So share your thoughts in this area then.
In what way, Camilla?
So, we say that we could Google stuff up if we don't know, right? And in oil and gas, I don't think that people can just Google and know where the oil is, right?
No. I wish we all can do that.
Do you think it's easier for you to lead then in that kind of business?
No, actually.
What sort of challenges do you face then?
I gotta say that this role is quite interesting for me, because it's a combination of management and technical, right? And it's something that I'm relearning as we speak, because at one point I thought, forget about oil and gas. I will never come back to oil and gas, right? I mean, so lesson number 1, never say never. Lesson number 2, always sharpen your tools, the skills that you have. So I think it depends and differs by industry, right? Specifically for the industry that I'm in the work that we have to do, it is very, like you said, it's very specialized. It's highly, highly technical. I'm talking about, on a day-to-day basis, I'm looking at from a geology to, making sure our oil terminals actually, now with the Labuan and COVID issues, right? And it's 100% running, to managing safety case that somebody offshore is actually safe while having 500 people on board right now as we speak. And actually, I told my operation manager today, please don't call me at 10 to 11. Actually, for today, I told him that. And there are, I think we need, as an individual and also a leader, we need to be very, very good at what we do for the role that we have, right? And I think it goes with anywhere, HR, you have to be the best HR person, as a startup, you have to be the best. So I think we have to find ways, right? There is no shortcut to building competency. You need to spend time. I mean, Shazmi and I know, like, because, my eldest now just finished his A-level, right? I mean, I look at the way how he did his studies and his math and his, like, just for transparency, right? He got almost perfect score in SAT, right? And all his A-level is like, I don't know what, like, he's much smarter than me now, for sure. But the way that he did put the effort was amazing. And I said that people always see the success just on top and like, okay, it's so easy, or it's not easy. You kind of have to ask yourself, I think as an individual, you have to ask yourself, are you willing to invest your time to get to this point where you want? And if you are not willing to invest your time and where you are, it is, and of course we always can get support lah. So for me, I will say in this role, because I am not a technical person at all, that I know. I mean, I used to be a technical person, but I am not the best person in the room, the smartest person in the room, right? So you kind of have to harness that, but know the basics to put this together. So let's say, for example, as a conductor, you don't have to be the best clarinetist or whatever, but you need to know the different parts and the roles that these people play, the cello, the bass, whatever, right? And then put it together. Again, I'm going back to my artist, sorry. I just tend to go back to my artist.
It makes sense. Yeah, no worries.
Put it together. Yeah. So.
Okay, great. So I guess as a leader, we are like macam a orchestra leader, right? To make sure that everybody plays and it just sounds nice, just like that. And everybody is a specialist in that whole team.
And sometimes you have to manage some people out. Right?
That's an interesting topic. You want to add more?
I mean, it goes back to the values, and also, so I think going back to my theme of being compassionate, right? It's not about being nice, but also being compassionate. If this person is best to contribute somewhere else using his or her strength and will feel good about themselves, then help them to grow somewhere else. It's a little bit counterintuitive lah, but that's just my principle. Yeah.
HR leader, got something to say about this? Can support commercial in that?
No, I think, look, the best person, for example, in Google, right? The smartest person in Google might not be the smartest person. When he moves to Shell or Asia School of Business or Dialogue for the matter, he might not be the best person. But some people are just good at a particular company or a particular, industry, but might not be the same. I think we looked at as sports, right? The best football player in a particular club, when they move to another club, they don't become the best football player anymore. Because it's the adjustment, it's the way of playing, and it's the same thing in life, in corporate life, right? So sometimes the best, you have to make sure that the goal is similar, you have to make sure the values are similar, and then only it will gel, right? You cannot get a team of superstars and try to win a championship. It doesn't work.
Okay. Now I've got a question from the floor coming from Melissa Tan. How do you help those who are not parents to apply this concept? I gather it's at the workplace, right, Melissa? Yeah. Who can take this question? How do we help those?
I'll take that. You know why? Okay, so what's the similarity? This is one of the blogs that I actually wrote, the similarity between parenting and leadership. Similarity is these are all people. As I wish I can just work with robots, unfortunately, we have to work with people. So between being a parent or between being a leader, we are working with humans, right? The good thing about being a parent is you love them. You have to love them unconditionally, right? And you're gonna stuck with this kids for the rest of your life. But with the leadership, there's some slightly difference there. But the thing that I will find transferable, right? The transferable lessons between parenting and leadership is we are actually working with individuals. We are working with people who have emotions, who have aspirations, who have even, slightly different sets of values. So what we do is our job as the leader is to help. I see myself actually as a facilitator rather than a leader, because I hate that to use the word leader lah, Camelia. I don't know, maybe that's just me, but I just feel like I've helped facilitate people towards a common goal, right? The same way how I find as a parent, I facilitate my kids to achieve what they want to get out of life. So basically support. I just maybe, help them nudge and sometimes do consequence management. Sometimes you performance management. Sometimes you give carrots, sometimes you give stick, right? So yeah, the common denominator is people.
Okay, cool. So Shazmi, how about your end then? So can this be applied by facilitator? Oh, I like that word. I'm gonna can curi a bit, trademark and not that one. Right?
Boleh, not my thing anyway. Yeah.
So how to facilitate? I mean, can we apply this concept, into the corporate if you're not a parent at home?
Yeah, of course. I think at the end of the day, our messages, Zalina and I, although we didn't plan this, is in a way very similar. Everyone is an individual. Everyone has their strengths and weaknesses. A lot of times as leaders, we try to focus on people's weaknesses and make them better instead of harnessing on the strength. But I think a lesson learned is there is so much of weakness that you can improve. But if you focus on the strength, there's so much more value that you can get. You don't need to be a parent, to do that, to know that, everyone, there is power in diversity of thinking. There's a power in diversity of background. Understand that your staff is going to be more intelligent than you. I feel every generation, and I'll be very disappointed if a new generation is not smarter than the generation before. Then we would have failed, right? Compared from the caveman to today, we become better intelligence-wise. So I only expect the next generation to become better than us. But if they are not, then we would have failed. So understand that the people that you hire, they can be 24-year-old. They might not know the nitty-gritty technical part of your work, but their broad-mindedness or broad knowledge is going to be better than you. And it's the challenge as a leader then is how do you, leverage that to make things better. And have that humility like as the leader. I mean, the days where if the boss asks you to jump, you ask how high, boss, is long gone, right? This is very different now. You're going to get people asking, why should I jump? Why don't you jump first, then I jump? So these are the kind of people we're going to get.
Try that.
These are very, very valid questions.
Zalina terasa, is it?
I like that. Why don't you jump first? I'm going to start using that. Okay.
Yeah, good. Okay, so I hope that answers Ruben and Ranuga's question on when parents typically must know everything. So this is like a facilitator or leader, when must they know everything? So I guess that you guys are saying, nope, not necessary, right? We have our own role to play as facilitator of the team. I really like that, Zalina. I'm going to curi that. Facilitator of the team.
And to Ruben and Renuga's question, it's okay to be outsmart. I know it's a bit tension, right? But it's almost like your staff knowing better than you. It's fine. But there'll still be a lot of other things that you can teach them, right? And I think the role is more of a characters, is CORRECTOR, of behaviors that the child has. So that when the child outsmart the parents, and chances are they will outsmart, if there is a bit of arrogance creep in, it's about how to bring that behavior correct again. I think you should be happy that they outsmart you, right? So don't think as they have outsmarted you, think that they have improved their knowledge, but how do you make sure that arrogance doesn't come in? And it is something that I see among my children every day. When, for example, my son runs faster than my daughter in a race or whatever when they play, and he keeps telling me, I got number one, and which is good because he's fast, but is to tell him, don't you think you're behaving a bit like the rabbit against the tortoise, and that you can't be boastful? So it's about immediately telling it's good that you ran fast, but you cannot be boastful. And I think that's the role of the parent, I think, more than anything else.
Okay, guys, Huda has made some important point here. She said an important aspect is also the readiness of leaders to manage and accept mistake by allowing people to learn. Rather than expose them to any negative impact directly or indirectly, right? So this is both sides, right? How do you guys as leaders, facilitators, encourage your one line down telling them that, look, give people the chance, and also on the flip side, how do you then manage upwards, telling people that, hey, it's okay, it's okay to let my people fail, but what? So what's the action taken there?
Yeah, I think, again, going back to the same principle of you have to be able to discern what is acceptable failure and what's not, right? I guess it's case by case basis in industry. Like for me, zero tolerance to safety, like zero tolerance. So that's just kind of communicated very clearly. But at the same time, to say, encourage people to give feedback. Because sometimes when I talk about zero tolerance, people feel like, oh, then I'm so scared. And you go complete the opposite intent, the unintended consequence, right? And I think I've always, also, it's also going back to the communication and management. And it's not easy. I don't think there's a, one size fits all answer. Most of the time it will go back to, okay, so what's the goal that we want to get for this? For example, if we want to, so our success factor, KPI this year is, zero hydrocarbon leak, not. So we know that is not possible, but we know zero fatality or zero injury is possible. So we kind of say that, okay, so how do you manage and preempt all these things so that it doesn't go there? So you have to tell me before things go crazy, right? And as a leader, how do you encourage that conversation so that they bring this up before the issue gets bigger? I think that's the key for me. And also what I've learned from going back to this honesty value that we have instilled as parents with the small kids, right? That it's okay to tell me bad news. We manage that together, but don't come with me with all this bad news when we cannot change at all. And I cannot help you support. I cannot help you fix this problem. So I think there's that fine line of, it's okay to tell me bad news. Let's work this together, but don't tell me bad news when it's already like done deal and we can't change the outcome.
How about Shazmi on your end?
Yeah, so let me share examples from my previous workplace, right? When I was in Pfizer. So we had every year an annual plan on what we want to achieve. And we had, from the annual plan, we divided into two. One are non-negotiables, where by hook or by crook, we need to deliver zero mistake. Don't use suddenly become extra creative to change things, etc. Because these are non-negotiables, right? Even if there's a pandemic, a storm, etc., we need to deliver this. Then there's another element where we want to do new things. And for those, what I do is I appoint someone to lead that, and I tell them this is the beginning of the journey, this is the destination, how you get there, your call. Be creative, try different things, etc. And if you're not successful, it's fine. And to give them that confidence that they can fail, I will always tell them your performance management is measured on the non-negotiables. On the new ones, if you become successful, yes, we'll give you extra credit for it. But if you're not successful and you fail because you tried a new idea, you're not going to be penalized for it. And that's something we make it very, very clear. And I think then people feel that, oh, if I do well, I get sort of a merit point. If I don't do well, there is nothing wrong with it. But you need to show that you try, not don't try it at all. But that's where we always get more creative ideas coming in.
True. So this is a very similar approach with Zalina. So identify the areas that are critical or non-negotiable and really communicate as hard as you can to make sure everybody knows that, but also allow some safe space for them to, explore, create creativity, fail and learn from it, that kind of concept, right? Okay, Sandbox, you call it. Yes, that's right. So thank you so much, Zalina and Shazmi, for sharing your valuable insights, experience, and practices for today's discussion. I myself, I've totally enjoyed the session and learned so much from both of you. So let's just, now that we're at 11 o'clock, let's round this up with a takeaway of the day. Let's do one start and one stop. What's one leadership thing that you will start doing today, and one thing that you will stop doing. Maybe you can share in your comments, or maybe start thinking about it if you need the weekend to think about it, right? And yeah, back to this. Thank you so much. Zalina, we have actually known each other through the Espresso Lab. Remember the coffee, over coffee and whatnot? So Joshua Liu, the founder of Espresso Lab, has purposely come this morning to actually deliver the boxes behind, and I'll get that across to Zalina and Shazmi on courtesy of Espresso Lab, right? So
Camilla, before we end, just maybe one thing. So whenever I do a talk, I try, especially now in virtual setting where we don't really get to meet each other, etc. I generally like to keep in touch with people who attend talks. So unlike Zalina, I don't have the blog spot. I don't have a blog. I have no idea how you find the time to do it. So kudos to that. But if anyone wants to have further conversation, further check-in, want to keep in touch, please, please, add me on either LinkedIn or Instagram. I will tell you very honestly, LinkedIn I know is a professional platform, but I get spammed a lot on LinkedIn. So I don't read LinkedIn as much as I should. But if you have Instagram, just add me on either one of the platform. It's Shazmi Ali. My parents found a name that they know no one else is going to replicate. So Shazmi Ali is, I think, the only Instagram there. SHAZMIALI. So I look forward to keeping in touch with everyone. And the coffee, for sure.
Thank you so much again, Shazmi, for actually opening this door up for everybody. So audience, thank you so much again for sparing your precious weekend to basically learn from each other. So let's continue to have this. Next week, please tune in again. There will be a session on Thursday at 4 p.m. where we'll be talking about employee wellness in the new workplace. So with that, have a great weekend, everybody, and ciao.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Camilla. Thanks, Shazmi.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Bye.